Hello. Really, what we need to do now is address this issue of how the heck do we figure out some method of applying or estimating and then allocating these manufacturing overhead costs to work in process inventory on a job-by-job basis. Let's look at this temporary holding account called manufacturing overhead that's sitting in our general ledger, and here's a T account for it. And up to this point in time, we have been debiting this holding account for all of our actual manufacturing overhead costs, whether they be indirect materials, and we've included in indirect materials some small direct materials like glue and nails that we didn't know how to, didn't want to account for directly. So we've just kind of included that in manufacturing overhead. And we've got indirect labor, supervisory salaries, we've debited here to manufacturing overhead. And we've got other costs that we've been debiting in here to manufacturing overhead, including utility costs and depreciation of equipment. So all of these costs we've been debiting are the actual costs of manufacturing overhead. What I've been saying is we're accumulating these costs, but at some point in time, we're going to have to take these costs out of this holding account and put it into work in process. I mean, that's really where it belongs. These are costs associated with making the inventory in work in process or jobs in production. And so what we're going to have to do here is we are going to have to take out of manufacturing overhead by crediting manufacturing overhead virtually all of these costs and debit work in process inventory for all of these overhead costs. But when we do that, crediting manufacturing overhead and debit work in process for these overhead costs, now including in work in process inventory, we've already accounted for direct materials and direct labor. And now I'm saying at the end here, we're going to try and we're going to take all these manufacturing overhead costs and put them into work in process. But when we do that, we are also going to have to designate how much of all of this manufacturing overhead cost should be allocated at job 351 versus job 355, etc. So we're going to take it out of manufacturing overhead and put it into work in process and allocate it job by job. But this process of application of manufacturing overhead to each individual job and its job cost sheet is going to have to be done on some kind of an estimated basis. And the tool we're going to use here is something referred to as a predetermined overhead rate. Okay? What do you mean, Norm, by predetermined overhead rate? And how is this overhead rate actually going to be predetermined and then actually used to apply manufacturing overhead costs job by job?